Hey guys, it's Dr. May. So we're up to chapter 34 of sensory motor psychotherapy. I can't believe we're almost done. 35 is the final chapter in the book, but this is a really important one. So we're on the moving forward section of our progress. And one important way we have to move forward is to learn actually to have fun, to learn how to enjoy ourselves and build in that quality of life. And a lot of times we spend time reducing the negative problems, but we also have to build in the good stuff. So that's what today's lesson is all about. And they call it pleasure, play, and positive emotions. Okay, because that's something we really need to work on, making sure that we have built into our life. Okay. So I like to think of the metaphor of pulling weeds and planting flowers. So a lot of times in our treatment and in our healing, we have to pull out the weeds. We have to find ways to eliminate some of the problems that we have or reduce the negative emotions that we have or the negative experiences. But at the same time, if we just pulled out the weeds, we would only have a pile of dirt in our garden. It wouldn't be that beautiful. So we also have to learn how to plant flowers and build in the beauty in our life, the enjoyable stuff. So we have to figure out how to have fun. Like where I work in my hospital, we even have recreation therapists that designed to help people have fun, and how do I relearn how to do that now that I'm doing a little bit better? Okay. So why should we bother? So obviously, I think some of the reasons are obvious, but let's just go over them just to remind ourselves why this is so important. So when we experience joy, we're just more likely to have a more positive and hopeful view of life. When we feel it ourselves, life seems just better, right? If I experience joy, my life seems more joyful. And I'm less likely to have that negative, hopeless slant on things. It kind of builds in some hope for me, some possibility that things can be good sometimes, okay? It's also important in fostering resilience. So resilience basically means our ability to bounce back from negative experiences. And it gives me more confidence that I can have positive experiences in between some of my negative ones, that my life isn't going to always be gray. It's not always going to be this desert of hopelessness and shame and negative experiences. I'm going to be able to build in some of the good stuff in between. And so I know that if I just wait it out, that the good stuff will follow the bad. Okay. And it contributes to my enjoyment of life, which again is part of moving forward. Even relationship wise, sometimes we've built a lot of relationships around our problems and connecting through our pain or connecting through our wounds. But there's also ways to connect with people through having fun. And we may not have had a whole lot of practice doing that. So we could always try it now if that's the case. So it could strengthen social bonds through good things. And that could be a new experience for us. So in addition to being able to be vulnerable with people and share our pain, we'll be able to join with people in our joy and have good time. And the good times can be about doing things that have nothing to do with competition or nothing to do with, I'm doing this fun activity because I'm trying to win, or I'm trying to be better than somebody, or I'm trying to avoid the humiliation of performing poorly. It's just doing the activity for the sake of having fun, whether you win or lose, or whether there's no competition at all, whether it's just to have fun and there is no winner or loser, just for the sake of building those positive experiences. Okay, so of course, it's important for us to go back and think about what family environments did we have that helped us to either have the ability to enjoy play and positive emotions now, or took away from our ability to do that. So we'll start with the positive. So ideally, some family environments do promote play and positive emotions, and they promote both high arousal play and low arousal play. So high arousal play is kind of like in those pictures, like if you had some fun with your family running around the backyard or roughhousing or having high energy games or activities together, those are like high energy, playful activities that might have been fun and exciting and exhilarating for you. So some of the emotions associated with that include exhilarated, excited, delighted, ecstatic, hilarious, and elated. Okay. So just look at those pictures. The kids are running around, they're having fun, the parents are having fun, their heart's beating really fast, they're running, right? So all those emotions go along with experiences like that are made to be safe and fun together. Low arousal play are more like things, like kind of quiet play. So sometimes maybe we're just playing with blocks, or we're playing a quiet board game, or we're reading a story together with a parent, right? So those things are kind of calming activities where we could have a good time, but in a calm, peaceful kind of a way that feels comforting, but low arousal. You're not running around, you're kind of feeling kind of chill while you're doing it. So related emotions include serene, tender, relaxed, content, and peaceful. Okay. So the idea is that if we were lucky enough to have caregivers that promoted both of those kinds of atmospheres, we probably have been able to be okay with those kinds of experiences and can continue them in our lives now. So they offer a certain amount of safety during those experiences, that we're having fun together, we're going to be okay, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, we're all having a good time, and they're allowed. This is part of your repertoire that everyone's okay to have. That's the message, okay? And they welcome your positive emotions by showing their own positive emotions and having certain nonverbal communications that let you know that those types of experiences are okay. So that could include the prosody, which is kind of like the melodic tone of their voice, laughter, welcoming movements and gestures, and facial expressions. So just the nonverbal messages that it's okay to have these playful experiences, okay? All right. Another thing that's very important that your caregivers might allow you to do is to help you recover from negative emotional experiences. So obviously, even in the best of families, you're never going to feel happy all the time. There's going to be patterns of feeling good, then feeling bad, and then feeling good again. And if we're lucky enough, our parents help us move past the negative experiences and feel better again. And when they do that with us on a regular basis, we also learn how to bring ourselves out of negative experiences and get back to positive experiences. So this is kind of the resilience, right? That negative experiences won't last forever. I'm learning how to bounce back from them, and I'm developing the coping skills to do it, okay? And it gives me more confidence that if I do experience a negative emotion, it's not going to last forever. I'm not going to get stuck in it and never know when I'm really going to recover. And when I do feel negative emotion, people will support me. They will help me. I feel the trust that people will have a positive response to me and help bring me out of my funk, so to speak. Okay. So just knowing things have a beginning and an end, and developing a flexible, adaptive capacity. All right. Which helps me in my social relationships. So if we have an argument, or we have a rift or a rupture, so to speak, I'm going to start to believe that it's possible to move past it, that we're going to work together and work it through. So there's a pattern of rupture and repair. So the repair is the really important aspect that secure attachment parents offer to us, okay? So we don't believe that, a fight's going to end the relationship. We believe that a fight could happen, but we can always make up and be better again. All right, so here's just a few examples of how these patterns could occur in childhood, for example, right? So let's say I'm a kid and I'm having fun, I'm riding my bike around the neighborhood, but then inevitably I fall down and I scrape my knee, all right? But maybe my parent comes around when I'm crying about my scraped knee, and he or she comforts me and helps to bandage my wound and makes me feel better again, okay? So even though my play was disrupted by falling down and getting hurt, because I was taken care of afterwards, I feel like I could play again. So even if I play and something bad happens, I can recover, and then play is still an okay thing to do. All right, so let's say the scenario happens on the bottom, which happens quite a bit with kids. All right, so let's say it's like, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, I'm playing with my toys, and then my parent says, okay, time to go to bed. Oh no, I don't want to stop now. So I get really upset because I don't want to go to bed now, right? I want to keep playing, I'm having fun. So I'm upset about it, but let's say my parent now comforts me and says, all right, don't worry, it's okay. Come on, let's go to bed and read a bedtime story. So maybe my parent cheers me up and helps me move past that difficult transitional time of my day. So I know that, all right, I was disappointed that I had to stop playing, but at least I know it's going to be okay in the end. My mom will make me feel better. She'll soothe me. She'll read me a story. I'll go to sleep, and then I could do it again tomorrow. Okay, so these repeated experiences of parents helping you recover from negative emotions are really important and permit this playfulness to continue. All right. On the other hand, all right, chances are a lot of us have had experiences where the family environment inhibited play and positive emotions, that it wasn't an experience I was allowed to have. It wasn't part of a repertoire I was allowed to develop. Or maybe like if I exhibited positive emotions, there was a negative response to it that made me feel like I don't want to show that to other people or even experience it myself. Okay, so how does that play out? So first one is, let's say we might have a family that is just a little serious. You know, they might frown on play or good feelings and, you know, emphasize just not feeling joyful or excited. Like they're kind of not reinforcing that experience, or they're subtly punishing me looking happy or looking like I'm having fun. Okay, so they might hush me, laugh at me, shame me, or even criticize me for being excited, silly, or loving. So I start to learn, if I want to keep my parents' love, I better not show those things. So I start to inhibit those experiences. And those inhibitions last across other situations as well. I start to generalize, right? Other times I might have a parent who's very achievement oriented, that I'm only okay if I'm achieving in a certain type of way that they approve of, such as getting good grades or succeeding at sports. And that's the main emphasis. It's not about having a good time. It's just about doing well. So there's a sense of doing rather than being. But if you have a true playful experience, you're just in the moment playing and having, you know, fantasies and playing them out with your toys and with other kids. But if that's not allowed and I only have to succeed, you know, I might inhibit that playful, imaginative experience. I might be much more goal-oriented or productive. I'm okay if I'm studying, but I'm not okay if I'm playing. Playing is a waste of time. All right, other times, you know, to no fault of their own, sometimes our parents are very overwhelmed. They're very stressed out. Maybe they're working parents, or maybe there's a lot of kids or a lot of things going on, or a single parent. And they're so stressed out that they're not able to show us a playful side. They're just busy trying to keep the household going, paying the bills, cooking, getting everybody set. And they don't really have the time or the energy to enforce the playfulness in us, to promote it, to join us in playfulness. And so that can kind of inhibit our play. All right. It may not be their fault necessarily. They're probably doing the best they can, but at the same time, it may be harder for us to really develop that playful side. Okay. And of course, you know, if there's a family situation where you're experiencing abuse or trauma, that in itself could inhibit play. Okay. If you're experiencing intense hyperarousal, so fear, you know, anxiety, you know, you're wound up all the time. You're searching the environment for threat. You're trying to just stay safe. It's hard to let that go, to just relax and play, because when you're playing, there's a certain amount of safety that you have to feel in order to let go. But if you're in an abusive situation, you know, you're on guard all the time. You can't let go, right? Or there might have even been experiences where laughter wasn't something that was fun. It was used maliciously. There might have been a lot of experiences you had of being laughed at, right? Which kind of also inhibits you, because you don't want to show the behavior that you were laughed at for doing. So it limits your repertoire even more. So other times, you know, it just, you even be shut down because of trauma and threat. And when you're really shut down and hypo-aroused, you don't have the energy to play. Okay. So all of that makes a lot of sense. So if that was your experience, you know, think, yeah, of course not. Right. That doesn't make sense for me. Okay. So let's go into this a little further. So I was trying to think of the best way to do this diagram, but try to bear with me. Okay. So on the left side, I put the 5 major animal defenses that we have. Okay. So the hyperaroused fight, flight, or crying for help, and the hypoaroused freeze and shut down. Okay, so freeze is kind of like the brakes and the gas pedal at the same time. So you're revved up on the inside, but you're physically frozen. Shut down is much more of a low arousal collapse. Okay, so all of those inhibit play. So when you're in any of those modes, you're so focused on survival, surviving the danger and threat, that it's hard to let loose and play. So it might be hard to play video games with your dad, or play chess with your grandpa, or have fun in the pool with your mom, or play soccer with your parents, for example. Okay, all those things, it might be hard to let loose and enjoy. All right. So high and low intensity forms of positive emotions are absent or paired with fear or apprehension. So even if there is something playful, you might be afraid the other shoe is going to drop. All right, so in a minute, someone's going to criticize me for looking funny or doing something wrong, or they're just trying to be nice to me because they're grooming me to abuse me later. All right, so there might be, even if there is playfulness, like a negative association to it. So it's hard for me to really relax and enjoy it. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. All right, so negative associations to positive emotions. Okay, so let's look at the picture. Looks a little like Judy Garland, but I'm not really sure. So she has a sun on the left side, symbolizing positive experiences, and a dark cloud on the right side, symbolizing a negative experience. So sometimes what normally is just a pure positive experience is paired with a negative experience. And so you have this association in your mind. So if I do this positive thing, it automatically brings up this negative memory of something else that followed that was negative for me in the past. Okay, so when pleasurable experiences were associated with trauma or punishment or abandonment, maybe you were having fun right before something bad happened, right? Or maybe you did something that you were very proud of. You were like, dancing and singing to a popular song from the radio, and then someone laughed at you. So the positive free experience was paired with something very negative. So you take that with you now, and it might be hard to get into the positive stuff because the negative association is right there with it. Okay. Or even, sexual abuse. Sometimes, you're groomed for it first. There's games first. There's other pleasurable things, interactions that have nothing to do with the abuse, but it's followed by the abuse. It's designed to lure you in and build a connection and build false trust so that the person could eventually abuse you and use you for their purposes. So you might be very reluctant now to do something positive, and you may not even be sure why, but it might secretly bring up that association for you. All right. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go back to touch on our window of tolerance a little bit. So if you've been following along with this series, we've referenced the window of tolerance a number of times. Okay, so if you have difficulty playing because of any of those reasons, you might have a limited access to safe emotions and safe levels of arousal overall, right? So abusive experiences or traumatic experiences naturally shrink our window of tolerance. And you might be so much more focused on avoiding pain, so pulling out the weeds, rather than planting the flowers. Because positive emotions, why should I even try? Because they feel so out of control for me. They feel uncomfortable. They have these negative associations, right? So I'm trying to reduce my experiences to stay safe, but I'm putting myself in a box like the woman at the bottom, okay? And sometimes I'm also stuck in experiences of hyper and hypoarousal, and I'm not even really good at moving through them yet. So it's hard for me to get to the point of play if I haven't fully addressed my hyper and hypoarousal. So that's why when we're talking about treatment, it's important to do the working through memories part before this. So you could deal with the hyper and hypoarousal issues, work through the painful memories, and now you have more room to deal with the play, to add the play in your repertoire. But if you're still dominated by trauma, you're still dominated by the hyper and hypoarousal, it's going to be hard to get there. All right, so just keep that in mind, if you're working on this, this video today. So you could always do more of this later if you need more work on the actual memory stuff, okay? And also building resources too. So build resources first, deal with the memories, and then afterwards, if you have more energy for it, certainly build in the play. All right. reduced capacity to play and experience positive emotions, and interpersonal consequences. Okay, so now, for whatever reason, if you're having trouble playing and, being positive, being spontaneous, having fun with people, it could affect your relationships now. So even if it's appropriate to have fun and loosen up now, you might still struggle with it because of these old experiences. So if you have difficulties with play, you might have a reluctance to even attend a fun social situation. It just might feel uncomfortable for you. You might have fun loosening up and playing around with your friends. Like you might feel like the guy in that picture, kind of like, you feel like you're in this weird bubble and everyone else is having fun, but it's hard to kind of join in with them. It's hard to like feel connected to that experience. You might feel like a little odd, like a little off, a little disconnected, you might be hard to even have just small talk with people or just kind of like conversation or like little jokes and laughter and things like that. It might be, even that it could be difficult. And also one of the unfortunate parts is that you could, like I was saying earlier, you could build bonds with people through play, through having fun. And so if you're not capable of doing that, you're limiting some of the closeness that you could be developing with people, especially with kids, right? Because kids connect through play. So if you have a hard time playing with your own kids or a hard time playing with nieces and nephews, for example, it's going to be harder to establish a bond with them. And that's kind of sad, right? Because we would hope to have a good relationship with them. And even if you're in a relationship with a partner, it's nice to have fun experiences together with your partner, right? Not just bond through arguing, but bond through having fun. So it could get in the way of really having that positive connecting experience with a partner. So that's why it's important for us to kind of build in this capacity. All right. So clearly, if we had difficult experiences that limited our play and positive emotions based on the families we grew up in and all those kinds of things that I just outlined a minute ago, we're going to also probably have developed limiting beliefs that continue to inhibit my play and positive emotions. So I unconsciously might have drawn conclusions about play or drawn conclusions about feeling good or having fun that are now influencing my behavior. So I might think things such as, life is work, not play. Having fun gets you in trouble. Being playful is stupid. Playing is a waste of time. If I spend time playing around, I'm being unproductive and lazy. Okay, so if those are sort of the messages you were getting when you grew up, you might still kind of secretly feel these things now. And when you feel those things, it's going to be harder to engage in those kind of playful behaviors. Right. So other things that might get in the way is we might fail to even see the humor in things. We might inhibit that kind of creative, humorous side of ourselves. We might try to be a little bit more negative in the way we perceive things, or we might be too perfectionistic and rigid and be afraid to make mistakes. Whereas when we play, we have to be free enough to just try stuff and risk looking silly or risk making a mistake. All right. So then, because it's sensory motor psychotherapy, we have to look at what happens with our body, right? So when we develop those limiting beliefs, they also reinforce the procedural memories we developed with our body. So our body postures and movements might further inhibit our play and positive emotions, right? So sometimes we might feel like the woman in that picture where everyone else is kind of loosened up and they're having fun, but we feel kind of stiff and awkward, right? Our body is tense, we're constricted. Maybe we pull back from people instead of leaning in and having fun. Our movements become kind of small. We're kind of keeping tight to ourselves in a protective kind of a mode. Maybe we're not moving in a spontaneous kind of a way. We're kind of rigid, right? So when we look that way, we look like the kind of person who's not having fun, who's not into having fun, and people might further leave us alone, which might further reinforce ideas about ourselves that we're just not fun people, or we're not that interesting, or people don't really like me. So it's just a vicious cycle. And it reinforces some of those limiting beliefs that we just talked about too. So, what do we do? Okay, we will get to that. But also, just to be fair, right, there might be additional reasons why we struggle with play and positive emotions in our life. Now, sometimes, we're capable of playing, but we're so bogged down with our own work and our own stress that we just don't have time for it, right? We might work long hours at work. We might come home and still have chores to do or kids to take care of. And we just didn't find time to build it in, right? Other times when we do have time, we might do kind of like, junk food type of activities, such as just surfing the internet or just sitting and passively watching television. Okay. We all do it. I'm guilty of the same thing. Okay. Don't worry about it. But sometimes, we spend so much time on that we fail to carve out time to do activities that are much more enriching and more likely to bring about joy. Right. So I spend a lot of time, doing some of these things sometimes, and I don't carve out enough time to play the piano or to paint or to exercise or to take a walk in the park, which are things that would be much more fulfilling for me. But I have to consciously make that decision sometimes, right? But we all do it, so don't worry about it. But just to be aware. Other times, sometimes we get to a point in our life where we're a little blah and we just don't have the energy or the motivation to engage in playful activities, so maybe we just don't feel like making the effort, or we're invited to do something and we just like, I think I'd rather just stay home today. Right. So sometimes, we're out of it, but sometimes if that lasts a long time, that state, we should look at it, right, and maybe re-examine or do opposite to emotion action, as they say in DBT, and kind of push ourselves to engage in things that make us feel more positively. Other times, based on our earlier experiences and having to inhibit our playful side, we're in a place in our life now where we just don't know how to have fun. Like it's hard to loosen up and just have fun and let go and enjoy ourselves. We just don't even know how to do it, right? But it's still possible to learn. Okay, so this is the slide I thought was coming a little bit earlier, but there are definitely things we could do to reclaim the capacity to play. And I say reclaim because at some point in our life, we did have the capacity, but we might have had to shut it off. So we could always pull it back out again, okay? As human beings, we're naturally playful creatures, and we could always get it back. All right, so first, we have to learn how to neurocept safety. So when we're actually safe, to feel safe, right? So to really take in that it's okay to play, it's okay to let go. I'm around people who are friends, who will accept me, and I could be playful now, right? And when we do feel safe, we show it in our bodies, and our body language enables us to have more fun. So we might spontaneously laugh and smile more when we feel safe. We're more comfortable making eye contact with people. And we're more likely to move closer to people with our proximity-seeking actions, which we just covered in the last video, okay? Even our voices might be more prosodic, more melodic, less tense. Our bodies might move more freely, which is more of a playful thing to do. But the base of that is learning to even just feel safe to begin with, to notice the safety that's actually there, okay? Another thing we could try to do is, instead of overlooking the positives, to make more of an effort to notice it. They say sometimes we're like Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive, right? We let the positive experiences slip by, but we hold on to the negative experiences because it's more associated with the desire to survive and perceive threats so I can handle the threat when it comes. But we could start to let go of that and also keep our eyes out for the positive things. So learning to orient, we talked about the orienting response way back, to the positive things as well as possibly threatening things. And when we catch ourselves experiencing positive emotions, or we can notice, well, what's that like? What's triggering my positive emotions today? What's it doing with my body? How am I interacting with people? What does this feel like? Is it high arousal? Is it low arousal, right? I could start to pay attention to that more, okay? I could also keep an eye out for other people having fun and maybe learn about what that looks like and what parts of what they're doing is also something I would like to be doing, okay? And how do I respond to them? Oh, am I naturally starting to smile because I see someone else having fun? Is it enabling me to start to join in? Okay. And also very important, we can discover our play triggers, okay? A lot of times triggers we associate with negative things that trigger me to do this bad behavior, things that trigger me to pick up drugs, things that trigger me to self-injure. But what about things that trigger me to feel good or to play, or things that kind of lighten my mood? I could develop a greater capacity to notice those and bring more of those into my life. All right. All right, even more stuff here, some more tips. We can learn to mix play and fun into our ordinary lives by taking an ordinary activity and try to do it in a more playful way, such as in the picture, which is a little bit silly, but like trying to make chores, which are usually kind of bland, something that's actually a little more fun or playful. Okay, that's just an example. But there's ways we could do ordinary things in a more playful way, such as like playing your favorite music while you're chopping vegetables, which what I do sometimes, right? Or doing some other things that kind of bring a little bit more joy into the ordinary, okay? And another thing we could do also, which is partly part of, the grieving process of having maybe grown up in a way that, is not the way we wish we grew up. Just grieving the fact that maybe I didn't get what I needed as a kid to really develop my capacity for play. Unfortunately, I might have grown up in a household or in a circumstance where play wasn't really emphasized. Maybe it wasn't really possible. And, and it is sad. I wish I had that, and I'm sad for the kid that I was, because that would have been a better experience for me, right? So we could take the time just to grieve that part of our lives, while at the same time giving ourselves permission to build it in now. Okay. All right. So some more body movement, body language, okay, which is very important for us to keep note of. So we could think of, well, how do I want to look? How do I want my body to be when I'm having more fun? Like if I imagine other people having fun, what that looks like, how do I want to embody that myself? What do I want that to look like? So people who are playful have some of these attributes. So like tilting of the head, upright, open posture, like open to the experience of whatever's going on, unexpected, spontaneous gestures, dancing movements, laughter, smiling, grinning, expressive movements, jumpy or bouncy steps. Okay. Do I want to incorporate any of these? What would that be like? Okay. I could also notice the body language that I might have that inhibits play, right? Kind of like some of that stiffness we were talking about before. So when can I notice that I'm kind of a little bit rigid and my body's not open to the play experience, that my stiffness, that my rigidity is inhibiting my ability to be playful in this moment? So do I have a tense poker face, which tends to happen when I feel a little threatened, a tense body? Am I staying serious and on guard, furrowing my brow, pulling back? Okay. If I'm doing that, I can always then choose to undo that. I can inhibit those tendencies, try to loosen up. In radically open DBT, we talked about the big 3+1, which is sitting back if you're sitting, taking a deep breath, eyebrow wags, and a closed mouth smile, right? So things like that could help us to feel safe and to loosen up. Other times we could use things like this if it's appropriate. Okay, so we got to remember, like, these are the procedural tendencies of stiffness that interfere with my capacity to play. They were adaptive at an earlier point in my life, but maybe today in this circumstance, they're not adaptive. So how do I let go of some of those, inhibit those tendencies to counter my stiffness and constriction so I am able to play today? All right, so I have a bunch of exercises to share with you. So one is called remembering fun times. Okay, so like I said earlier, we all had the capacity to play, but perhaps it was inhibited. There might have been earlier times in our life where we were having fun, even times shortly before a trauma happened. And I could allow myself to remember them, re-experience them, and think about, like, what was it about those things I enjoyed? Or what were the things that I enjoyed? And try to bring that back into my consciousness now. Okay, so here are some examples. I'm going to read them to you. But obviously, there could be more things than this. These are just some examples. So, imitating people in a funny way, making faces, acting out in a silly skit, laughing at or telling jokes or funny stories, talking in a funny voice, making funny noises, singing a silly song, dressing up in a funny outfit, smiling, snickering, giggling, or just being silly with friends or family. All right. Next one, in the next chunk here with the second picture, playing a high energy game and shrieking with laughter, running through a sprinkler, having a water balloon fight, doing cannonball jumps into a pool. All right, sounds like some more spring, summer fun. Also, in the last part, jumping on a trampoline or a bed, swinging as high as you can on a swing, skipping, hopping, twirling around, doing cartwheels, or walking with a bounce in your step. All right, so these are some high energy, fun times. All right. Okay, so keeping some of those in mind, think of 2 times in your life when you had the most fun. Okay, so these could be from your childhood or more recently, it doesn't really matter. Just maybe times that you could recall where you were having fun. Okay, so really try to think about it, bring it to mind fully, think about all the sensory experiences, fully embody it. Okay, so describe the memory. Remember and describe your physical expressions or actions in this fun moment. Okay, was it high energy, low energy? How were you moving? What was your body feeling like? Yeah, remember how each of these actions felt in your body. Describe what you felt, like what were the emotions that came up? And what thoughts did you have about yourself, others, in the world, right? Did life seem just a little bit better when you were having fun? Okay, so that's first way we're going to start with the memories. Okay, so now we're going to try to change our orienting response, which is symbolized by our binoculars here. So we're going to now shift to being on the lookout for playful or fun moments that are occurring in our lives today. So try to do this over like the next week, for example. All right. So notice fun times that maybe you initiate or experience, or that, you notice in other people. So moments of playfulness I noticed in myself, and moments of playfulness I noticed in others. Okay. So these can include, for both sides, spontaneous actions, jokes, puns, or seeing the humor in things, laughter or smiling, or maybe some other category that, you kind of notice this week. Okay, so take note of those. If you have a journal and you want to write them down, that could probably help too. So it makes it a little more concrete. So after observing these, notice, was there any fun or playfulness that you noticed in your life that you hadn't acknowledged before? Maybe it was something that you kind of overlooked, but now that you're paying attention to it, it kind of jumped out at you a little bit more. Okay, so then another thing you could do is, now that I noticed them, can I make a commitment to look out for them more in the future? Okay, could I try to recognize some of these overlooked moments a little bit more? So now, again, this is not making it up. It's not inventing things. It's actually just seeing what's there that maybe I just didn't notice. Okay, so postures and movements that have to do with playfulness and fun. Okay, so a big part of this is our body, right? So there's certain things that we talked about earlier, where my body could support playfulness and fun, or my body could inhibit playfulness and fun. So some clues were given earlier, okay, that you can rely on for this exercise. So basically what you're going to do is try to first embody a posture of no fun, right? A posture that conveys that I'm not going to have fun. I don't like to have fun. I'm not comfortable with having fun. I don't want to play. Okay, so it's a little like Grumpy, the dwarf, but what does it mean for you, and how does that look, and how does that feel? So embody that, maybe even exaggerate it a tiny bit, and then notice how it impacts your building blocks. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's your body like when you're doing these things? Okay, next we're going to switch it up, okay, and we're going to try to have a posture of fun. So what postures show people that I'm open to playfulness, I'm open to humor, I'm open to spontaneity and doing something interesting and fun in this moment. Okay, so embody that, maybe exaggerate that a little bit, and then again, look at your building blocks. Okay, you could also, kind of toggle between the two. Move from no fun, move to fun. See if you could flexibly shift. Okay. All right, next. So we're going to examine some high arousal positive emotions. So as you can see in the diagram on the left, high arousal is part of our window of tolerance, but it's a little bit on the upper edge of our window of tolerance. So we're still present, we're still feeling relatively comfortable in this arousal, but it's on the higher end of the comfortable arousal zone. Okay, so some emotions that are associated with this include astonished, delighted, ecstatic, enthusiastic, excited, exhilarated, giddy, gleeful, happy, jubilant, overjoyed, silly, thrilled, and triumphant. Okay, so it looks like in those pictures, those people are having some high-spirited fun. So those emotions can kind of capture some of those moments. So select 3 high arousal emotions that you tend to experience frequently. Okay, it could be from this list or outside of this list. Okay, so for each one, think about what kind of situations evoke that emotion. What's your trigger for those high arousal positive emotions that you selected? So that we could be more aware of the kind of situations that enable us to feel these things. And then how do you experience them physically in your body and what movements are associated with them? All right, so now we have to move to the low arousal positive emotions, which are also is part of our window of tolerance, but just on the lower edge of it, we're still comfortable, but we're relaxed. Okay, so these could include affectionate, caring, compassionate, kind-hearted, loving, tender. All right, so these kind of have a little bit of an interpersonal slant to it, right? It's about how we might feel toward others or parts of ourselves, it depends. Other related low arousal positive emotions could include calm, composed, contemplative, contented, grateful, peaceful, pleased, satisfied, and tranquil. Okay, so select 3 low arousal emotions that you tend to experience frequently. And just like in the other exercise, think of what situations or people evoke those in you. What kind of things bring out those positive low arousal emotions? And how do you experience those in your body? So what does your body feel like then? And as a bonus, it's not in this written out here, but you could use those as a resource. Like once you realize what your body feels like when it feels good in a low arousal or high arousal positive manner, you could try to bring out those states again, right? What's my breath like when I'm feeling a low arousal positive emotion? What's my body like? Is there a certain way to breathe that I could bring about in another situation that'll help me? Is there a certain way of my body relaxing in this state that I could bring out on purpose in another situation that'll be helpful to me? Okay. All right. So now it's important for us to identify beliefs that limit our positive emotions, because once we identify what they are, we have the power to start to change them and re-examine them. All right. So beliefs, as I mentioned earlier, develop based on earlier experiences we had. They're conclusions that we drew based on earlier experiences we had with maybe families that wouldn't allow us to have positive emotions. Okay, so first we have to reflect on what were these early relational experiences that curtailed or limited our positive emotions. Okay, so think of what comes to mind for that. Then describe a belief you formed as a result of those experiences. Okay, so how does that belief affect your body? When you really think about it, what happens physically to you? And how does your belief affect your ability to experience positive emotions today? Like, is it still limiting you today? Chances are I would probably guess yes, right? All right, so now that you identified that, how can you challenge that limiting belief? So in what ways is it not true now or not true all the time? Sometimes we over-apply something when maybe it's only true some of the time. So here's an example that was provided in the textbook. So my parents taught me that I should be serious and never be silly. All right, so that's the limiting belief. It's saying you should never be serious, you should always be serious, you should never be silly, basically. But that's not really appropriate, right? Sometimes you should be serious, sometimes you should be silly. But being with my friend Jack challenges the belief because he's silly all the time and I could be silly with him. Oh, so there's certain people and situations where it is appropriate. Okay, so maybe I could loosen up on that positive belief, on that limiting belief, because sometimes it doesn't always have to be that way. Okay, I could be silly with Jack, maybe just not be silly with my parents. Okay, how could you change your body to support the new belief? All right, so if it's okay to be silly, what could I then allow myself to do with my body? Well, maybe I could remember to relax, smile, and giggle more. That it supports my silliness when it's appropriate to be silly. And what activities could you try out? So maybe I could hang out with Joe and my friend's children who are good at being silly, and I could be silly with them. Okay, so maybe you have another friend who has some kids and you could be silly with them. Okay, so you got to differentiate. You got to know what flexibly when could I be silly and it's okay? And then just practice doing it where it is okay. Okay, practicing playfulness. Examples of activities. Okay, so we're going to go over some of these examples here and then use them for the next part of this exercise. So if we want to practice playfulness, here are some things we could try now. All right, so go to a park or playground and play on the swings with a child or a friend. Obviously, like, don't do the baby swings. If we're too big for the baby swings, we shouldn't do that. But maybe, like the regular swings. Play with a child, puppy, or pet. Roughhouse with your kids, a friend, or a partner in an appropriate context, okay? You could Google funny short stories and read them with your therapist, a friend, or kid. Buy a joke book or search for jokes online. Find one you love and tell it. All right, so exposing yourself to written humor, okay, sometimes a safe way to practice that. Or even, like the next one says, watching a funny TV show. Maybe there's things you could watch that are humorous, a YouTube video, a comedy routine, a sitcom, funny movie. They even suggest here throwing a lively dance party. Whoa, that's a big step, huh? Okay, what about doing things with a friend that make you laugh? Taking silly photos of yourself with a friend or a family member. Thinking of funny things that have happened to you and tell your friends or family. Okay, you know how sometimes you could just like find the humor in certain things that just happened and then tell people the funny story? You could practice that a little bit more. Do something fun you used to do, but stop doing. Oh, sometimes life gets in the way and all of a sudden you realize, man, I haven't gone skiing for 10 years. Or, oh, I used to like doing X, but I haven't done it for so long because I was too busy, right? So what if you were to re-put that back in your repertoire now, if it makes sense for you, right? All right, so using these examples, perhaps, okay, or other ones you think of, choose 3 of the activities that you would like to try out that are a good first step for you. Maybe not throwing the lively dance party, that might be too big of a step, but maybe certain small things you could do. All right, so for each activity, notice how it affects your emotions and your body. All right, how does it feel to do some of these things and hula hoop with your friends or whatever it is up there, okay? And another interesting point of mindfulness is, how do I know that I'm actually having fun? What's the clues? What's the clues within my building blocks that I'm having fun right now, including within my body, of course? How does my body change when I'm playful and I'm having a good time? How do my emotions change when I'm playful and having a good time? All right. Okay, so just wanted to point out, if you want further information about play and positive emotions, I have 2 other videos that are kind of related. There's a little overlap, but there's definitely some extra things in these videos that I didn't cover today. So one of them is from the DBT series that I did, and it's under the emotion regulation handouts. I'm sorry, I'm saying handouts because I'm used to my groups. It's the ABC Please skill, which is about reducing vulnerability to negative emotions. But I broke it up, and so there's an ABC, and the A stands for accumulating positives in the long term and the short term. But I also built into there the HEAL skill from Rick Hansen, which stands for have a positive experience, enrich your positive experience, absorb your positive experience, and the optional link it to negative material. So it goes over ABC plus the HEAL skill in that video. Next one is from the Radically Open DBT series I did, and that's the one about being non-productive, silly, funny, and playful. So it also gives a bunch of examples there and talks specifically if you feel like kind of rigid and like it's hard to have fun and you kind of feel very serious sometimes and it's hard to loosen up because that's kind of being closed, right? So when you feel very closed, Radically Open DBT helps you be more open, and you have to be open in order to be playful. Okay, so feel free to check those out if you're interested. All right, so hope you're going to have a fun, silly, playful day, and take your time to enjoy yourself and believe that it's possible and that you deserve it. Okay, all right, guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see you the last 135 next time. Okay, bye for now.